What I think is missing right now in the race, it's frankly from both sides, is a hard discussion on policy. That's actually what we need. We're less than 3 months out.
You don't think Kamala's doing a lot better at that than what we were seeing before from Biden?
I don't think she has yet given us what her clear policy positions are. I think the fact of the matter is the economic policy. I was just on CNBC this morning before I came here. They're asking me, what do you think of her economic policy? She has not articulated what her economic policies are.
Well, she wants to rebuild the middle class. She wants to make sure everybody has
I'll give you some examples.
Those are talking points. That's not policy. Those are talking points. That's not policy. Let me say that for the people in the back. Listen, where do you stand when it comes to inflation, and how do we tamp that down? How does the Federal Reserve play a larger role in ensuring that we don't have an economic crash in 2025? And where do you fall when it comes to interest rates and home ownership, and how do you create a path to where you're not having people be house poor, especially including the ones that are in urban communities? Where do you stand on energy, right? Policy with regard to whatever it is that we're making as far as infrastructure deals when it comes to the electrification of vehicles, which was part of the infrastructure deal that you tried to incentivize, but we don't have the infrastructure with regard to the grid, right? When we talk about economic policy, we're also talking about giving people a choice between EVs and gasoline-powered vehicles, and how do we leverage the resources that we have, because we have reserves here in the United States of America that would allow for us to be a powerhouse, and economically we could leapfrog and then also get ourselves out of debt when it comes to national debt and things like that. That is policy. And when you start to break down the intricacies and the details of how it is that you're supposed to manage the United States of America that would ultimately benefit all Americans, not just one group of Americans, that's where you stand as far as policy. Not just she wants to empower the middle class. He's way out of his depth as far as trying to interview Vivek Ramaswamy. But let me continue to go. Thank you guys for sending me this.
Examples, right? Specific policies. She sued the Obama administration when she was California's attorney general for granting fracking permits. That's getting natural gas out of the ground through getting hydraulic fracturing of natural gas. Is she in favor of that now or not? Her advisors are saying she's no longer in favor of that. We don't know.
Because she's a chameleon, of course we don't know. They don't even know where they stand. They would love to have a Vivek Ramaswamy on their side.
Does she favor extending the Trump tax cuts? The Trump tax cuts, I think, helped a lot of people, middle class included. We just don't know whether she's in favor of that or not.
Trump tax cuts also incentivize companies to bring back foreign investment onto American soil at a lower tax rate in order to ensure that they don't then leverage foreign dollars in order to generate more revenue, but instead have more revenue coming into the United States of America and also create more middle-class jobs.
And I think Republicans, by the way, are making a mistake, too. I don't think that going down the road of, I think both sides, calling the other side weird, I don't think that's productive. Now, Republican responses of personal attacks in response, I think we would be better served in this election as Americans if for the next 3 months we have a vigorous debate on policy.
Listen, this is where Vivek falls short, because what Democrats realize that Republicans can't really tackle, or they can't really leverage, is that the majority of Americans that they're trying to register to vote that ultimately could or could not swing the election one way or another are voluntarily ignorant, and they are not interested in learning the details. They don't even go to the websites to realize that Kamala Harris doesn't have any policy whatsoever. How can you debate policy with somebody that has none? You see what I'm saying? How can you debate policy where people that are on the Democratic side, for example, probably do have some policy, but they don't want to actually clearly articulate it because it wouldn't favor them when it comes to the moderate or the swing voters or the independent voters that they need to ultimately register to vote? Why would they focus on that when they can focus on galvanizing their base with things that don't matter for you, as long as you get a free concert in front of Megan Thee Stallion, because they know that that's the most meaningful thing to you, not whether or not you can feed your family, because they're all about games and distraction, right? It's no point, and Vivek, he's right, but he's wrong as far as how the Democratic Party continues to market themselves, because the goal is to win the White House, not educate people on what's best for them. The goal is to maintain power, and that's the key.
policies are better going to lift up Americans.
Yeah, I don't think...
and we're not doing it yet.
The reason I don't like I'm not going to say I dislike the term weird. I just think it undersells
way
a
out
lot
of
the damage that Republicans are doing to this country, just labeling it weird.
But I think there's...
It's not useful. I think you want to go after the policies. Go hard in the paint. I believe politics should be about sharp elbows when it comes to policy debates. But when it comes to just saying that, oh, you're not normal compared to what?
Well, I think abolishing women's reproductive rights, is a little bit more.
Not abolishing women's reproductive rights. What he said was that should not be a federal issue. We need to remove government from your decision of whether or not you can choose to terminate a pregnancy early or whatever it is that you want to do. And that should go back to the state level, which I'm in favor of less government interfering in our lives. And more importantly, it's not even an issue that should be championed or something that we should be leaning on, because you can control, there's 100 different forms of contraception, and you can control whether or not you are out here having children or getting pregnant voluntarily. But more importantly, that's, we use the anomaly or we use the extreme in order to illustrate a point, but that's not what it is that we should stand on as far as a country. It's stupid. It's a distraction.
Here's where we should have the policy debate in that, because this is so interesting coming out of the Republican convention. Donald Trump, to the ire of a lot of Republicans, is opposed to a national ban on abortion. So am I, by the way, and I said so on the Republican debate stage. I was in the minority last year when I say that I am opposed to a federal ban on abortion, just on constitutional principle. Should at least leave it to the states. That made a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans upset. And yet it's a weird position to now adopt.
Because he never said ban it. He said leave it to the states, to the ire of the people that are on the right. But, marketing, I keep telling you, it's marketing. As long as they can continue to distract you and think and try to force you to think a particular way, it's not necessarily going to translate in the eyes of the voters that ultimately go to the polls, because most of them just vote down ticket ignorantly, and they're not going to be swayed either way.
If you do listen to a lot of the Kamala Harris campaign, they say he will sign and enact a federal ban on abortion. That's actually just not true, because, like it or not, he actually takes heat from many in the conservative camp for his opposition to that ban.
Smart.
Why abolish Roe v. Wade? Why say things
that was a Supreme Court decision.
Why say things like you want to get rid of abortion pills? I mean, you say it's a Supreme Court decision, but he takes the credit for it.
Never said that.
I'm the reason that this happened.
Well, look, I think that there's a legal and constitutional question of whether the federal government should be involved in any of this in the first place.
Because that's not freedom.
I tend to come from a pretty libertarian leaning school of thought. I want the federal government to be doing basically as little as is required to make sure the country is secure and people are allowed to live their own lives. I think Republicans can own a message even of, to the LGBT community, the gay community. You're free to marry who you want, if you want, without the government standing in your way. But that also doesn't mean that men get to compete with women in women's sports. Something that's even relevant coming out of the Olympics.
I agree.
So the more we're focused on that type of policy debate, and here's a litmus test I'd give you.
That wasn't a woman, though. You got to be. That was a woman.
The boxer, that's a more complicated case. It's intersex XY chromosome, though, right? But I'm talking about actually people who have male sex organs, people who have XY chromosomes that are competing in women's swimming competitions, right? Those are debates we ought to be able to have. And the litmus test for both sides is this. Whether you support Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, can you make the case for your candidate without actually referencing the other side?
Nope.
So my challenge...
Nope. And I proved it last night when we was on the panel. No, they can't. Very rarely, when you ask somebody, what is her policies? What is it that you like about her in order to be able to vote for? They say, well, I don't like the other guy, or it's the alternative to him. No, they cannot. And he's just articulating it a lot more intelligently than I am. And it's hard to believe that this guy's even 38 years old. But I'm a C student, so I'm a little bit slower than everybody else.
Actually, to a lot of the Kamala Harris supporters, is most of the case that I hear invoking Donald Trump. What is the case for Kamala Harris that does not involve referencing Donald Trump at all?
Correct.
I think that's missing right now.
Oh, I got that.
And for Republicans, I'd give you similar advice, too. What do we stand for? Not just what are we against. What do we actually stand for?
Charlamagne, they need some more educated people that can have a conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy, because he's over here dumbing himself down. Clearly, he's dumbing himself down in order to have a conversation about this. Maybe we need to do a more extensive live stream breaking down exactly what was going on with the Breakfast Club as far as him pulling up. I could see over there on her laptop, it just so happened that I paused it at this moment. I could see over there on her laptop, she's researching while he's there. so that she could be more informed, because she probably doesn't even know what he stands for or what his position is on most things, which is pretty crazy to know that you have people coming through and y'all don't really understand what it is that they stand for. But it's good for the views. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. And then we're doing after hours tonight, so that should be awesome. Let me know what y'all think, and should we do a more extensive review of what Vivek Ramaswamy is saying on this platform? Because it seems as though Charlamagne, the God, who is ultimately a Kamala Harris supporter, is way out of his league when it comes to having this conversation. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.